Have you ever felt like you're running in place, working hard, trying your best, but no matter what you do, you just can't seem to move forward? Like there's something holding you back, keeping you stuck in the same patterns, the same routines, the same unfulfilling cycles? If you're nodding along right now, you're not alone. So many of us feel this way at some point in our lives. We dream of change, of growth, of breaking free, but somehow we stay exactly where we are. But here's the question. What if the thing holding you back isn't external? What if it's not your circumstances, your environment, or even the people around you? What if the biggest obstacle standing between you and the life you want is you? Now, before you dismiss that idea as harsh or discouraging, let me clarify. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about empowering you. Because once you understand the invisible chains that keep you stuck, you can begin to break free from them. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today, the psychological trap that holds so many people back, and how you can escape it. Think about it. How often have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow"? Or convinced yourself that you're not ready, not good enough, or too afraid to take the leap? Maybe you've dreamed of starting a business, pursuing a passion, or making a big change. But every time you try, something stops you. A voice in your head whispers, "What if you fail?" Or worse, "What if you succeed, and it's not what you thought it would be?" This trap isn't unique to you. It's a universal human experience. Whether it's fear, self-doubt, perfectionism, or societal expectations, these invisible forces operate beneath the surface, shaping your thoughts, decisions, and actions without you even realizing it. They keep you safe, but they also keep you small. And here's the hardest truth of all. Most people never realize they're trapped. They spend their entire lives believing that their limitations are fixed, that their struggles are permanent, that they're simply not the kind of person who achieves certain things. But the truth is, none of that is true. You are capable of far more than you think. You just need to recognize the patterns that are holding you back. So, over the next 50 minutes, we're going to shine a light on those patterns. We'll uncover the psychological mechanisms that keep you stuck, and more importantly, we'll explore how to break free from them. Because the moment you become aware of these traps, you gain the power to dismantle them. And here's the beautiful part. Freedom isn't about eliminating fear, doubt, or uncertainty. It's about learning to move forward despite them. It's about recognizing that growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens when you take one small step outside of them. So, as we begin this journey together, I want you to ask yourself one question. What would my life look like if I weren't held back by fear or self-doubt? Hold on to that vision, because by the end of this video, you'll have the tools to start turning it into reality. So, what exactly is this psychological trap that keeps so many people stuck? To put it simply, it's a combination of mental patterns and behaviors that prevent you from moving forward in life. These patterns often operate below the surface, subtly influencing your decisions without you even realizing it. And while they might feel natural or even protective, they ultimately hold you back from reaching your full potential. Let's break it down. One of the most common manifestations of this trap is fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. It's that voice in your head that says, "What if things don't work out?" Or, "What will others think if I try and fail?" Fear acts like an invisible hand, pulling you away from opportunities and keeping you anchored in your comfort zone. Then there's self-doubt, that nagging feeling that whispers, "You're not good enough," or "Who do you think you are to pursue something like this?" Self-doubt thrives on past experiences, times when you've been criticized, rejected, or told you couldn't achieve something. Over time, it becomes a habit, shaping how you see yourself and your abilities. Another key component of the trap is perfectionism. This one can be especially sneaky because it masquerades as a virtue. Perfectionists believe they need to get everything just right before they can take action. They wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect conditions. But here's the problem: perfection doesn't exist. And by waiting for it, you end up paralyzed, unable to make progress. Finally, we have societal conditioning. From a young age, we're taught to follow certain rules, meet specific expectations, and conform to predefined roles. Whether it's choosing a safe career path, pursuing relationships that look good on paper, or living up to family traditions, these external pressures can steer us away from our true desires. We start chasing someone else's version of success and lose sight of what truly matters to us. Now, imagine all of these forces working together. Fear stops you from taking risks. Self-doubt convinces you that you're not capable. Perfectionism keeps you stuck in planning mode, never actually doing anything. And societal conditioning ensures you stay within the lines, avoiding anything that might rock the boat. Together, they create a powerful web, a psychological trap that holds you firmly in place. Here's an analogy to help you visualize this. Picture yourself driving a car with the handbrake on. You're pressing the gas pedal, expending energy, maybe even feeling frustrated, but no matter how hard you try, you're not getting anywhere. That's what this trap feels like. It's exhausting, demoralizing, and incredibly difficult to recognize because the handbrake isn't visible. But here's the good news. Once you become aware of these patterns, you gain the power to change them. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. By identifying the specific ways this trap shows up in your life, you can begin to dismantle it piece by piece. So, as we move forward, I want you to reflect on this question. Which of these patterns resonates most with me? Is it fear, self-doubt, perfectionism, or societal expectations? Whatever it is, don't judge yourself for it. These patterns aren't flaws, they're human. The important thing is recognizing them, understanding their impact, and committing to breaking free. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that keeps us stuck, and it's also one of the most misunderstood. On the surface, fear might seem like an enemy, something to avoid or overcome at all costs. But the truth is, fear isn't inherently bad. In fact, it serves a vital purpose. It's a survival mechanism, hardwired into our brains to protect us from danger. The problem arises when this ancient system gets triggered by modern challenges that don't actually threaten our survival, but feel just as overwhelming. To understand this better, let's take a step back and look at how fear works. From an evolutionary perspective, fear was designed to keep us alive. Imagine our ancestors living in the wild, constantly surrounded by predators and threats. When they encountered danger, a lion lurking nearby, for example, their brains would trigger the fight-or-flight response. Their bodies would flood with adrenaline, preparing them to either confront the threat or run for their lives. This reaction saved countless lives and ensured the survival of our species. But here's the catch. While we no longer live in environments where physical threats are constant, our brains haven't fully adapted to the modern world. Today, fear often shows up in response to non-life-threatening situations: public speaking, starting a new job, ending a toxic relationship, or pursuing a dream. Your brain can't tell the difference between a lion and a looming deadline. To it, both are threats that need to be avoided. This is why fear feels so paralyzing. It convinces you that taking action will lead to disaster, even when the stakes aren't nearly as high as they seem. It whispers things like, "What if you fail?" Or, "What if people judge you?" And because these scenarios feel real in the moment, you hesitate. You stay safe. You stay comfortable. But here's the paradox. Comfort doesn't lead to growth. Growth happens outside your comfort zone, in the space where uncertainty, risk, and vulnerability live. Think about it. Every major achievement in your life likely required stepping into the unknown. Whether it was learning to ride a bike, applying for a promotion, or moving to a new city, progress always involves some level of discomfort. Let me share an example. Consider J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before she became one of the most successful writers in history, Rowling faced immense fear and rejection. She was a single mother living on welfare, struggling to make ends meet. Her manuscript was rejected by multiple publishers before finally being accepted. Can you imagine the fear she must have felt during those years? The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of never achieving her dreams. Yet she didn't let it stop her. She kept writing, kept submitting, kept believing in herself, and eventually, she broke through. Now, apply this to your own life. What fears are holding you back right now? Is it the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of stepping out of your comfort zone? Whatever it is, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen if I faced this fear? Whoa. Often, our imagined outcomes are far worse than reality. Failure might sting, but it won't destroy you. Rejection might hurt, but it won't define you. Uncertainty might feel scary, but it won't last forever. So, how do you begin to confront fear? Start by acknowledging it. Instead of trying to push fear away or pretend it doesn't exist, lean into it. Say to yourself, I'm feeling afraid and that's okay. Then, take one small step forward. If you're afraid of publics, speaking, practice in front of a mirror. If you're afraid of starting a project, commit to working on it for just 5 minutes. Each small action weakens fear's grip and builds your confidence. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act despite it. Every time you face your fears, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than you think. You remind yourself that growth lies on the other side of discomfort and that the rewards are worth the risk. As we continue exploring the psychological trap that keeps you stuck, keep this in mind. Fear is not your enemy. It's a signal, a signpost pointing toward areas where you have room to grow. The question is, will you listen to it or let it hold you back? If fear is the external force that holds us back, then self-doubt is the internal voice that keeps us stuck. It's that relentless critic inside your head, the one that whispers, "You're not good enough," or "Who do you think you are?" It's the voice that questions your abilities, magnifies your flaws, and convinces you to play small. And while it might feel like this voice is protecting you from failure or rejection, it's actually doing the opposite. It's sabotaging your progress and keeping you trapped in a cycle of hesitation and inaction. Let's break this down. Where does self-doubt come from? Often it stems from past experiences, times when you were criticized, judged, or told you couldn't achieve something. Maybe a teacher once said you weren't smart enough. Maybe a parent dismissed your dreams as unrealistic, or maybe a friend made an offhand comment that stuck with you far longer than it should have. Over time, these moments accumulate, shaping how you see yourself and your potential. But here's the problem. Self-doubt isn't just about external feedback. It's also about how you internalize it. When someone criticizes you, it's easy to take their words as truth instead of questioning whether they're valid. You start to believe the negative stories you've been told, and worse, you begin telling them to yourself. Before long, self-doubt becomes a habit, a default setting that colors every decision you make. Now, let's talk about how self-doubt operates. It's sneaky. It doesn't always show up as outright negativity. Sometimes it disguises itself as caution or humility. For example, instead of saying, "I'm terrible at this," it might say, "Maybe I should wait until I'm more qualified." Instead of declaring, "I'll never succeed," it might whisper, "What if I try and it doesn't work out?" These subtle messages are just as damaging because they keep you stuck in the same place, unable to take action. Here's an analogy to help you understand this better. Imagine planting a garden. You've prepared the soil, chosen the seeds, and watered them carefully. But every time you check on your plants, a voice in your head says, "They're not growing fast enough. You must be doing something wrong." So you stop watering them, you neglect them. Eventually they wither and die, not because they couldn't grow, but because you stopped nurturing them. This is what self-doubt does to your dreams. It convinces you that you're incapable, unworthy, or unprepared, And as a result, you stop investing in yourself. You stop taking risks, trying new things, or pursuing opportunities. You settle for less than you deserve because you don't. Believe you're capable of more. But here's the good news. Self-doubt isn't permanent. Like any habit, it can be unlearned. The first step is becoming aware of it. Start paying attention to the thoughts that run through your mind when you're faced with a challenge. Are they encouraging and supportive, or critical and dismissive? Once you recognize the patterns, you can begin to challenge them. Here's a practical exercise to try. The next time you hear that inner critic, pause and ask yourself, would I say this to someone I care about? If the answer is no, then why are you saying it to yourself? Treat yourself with the same kindness and compassion you'd offer a friend. Reframe negative thoughts into positive affirmations. Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, remind yourself, I'm learning and growing every day. Another powerful tool is reframing failure. Self-doubt thrives on the belief that mistakes are proof of inadequacy. But what if you saw them differently? What if you viewed failure as feedback, a sign that you're pushing boundaries and expanding your limits? Every successful person has failed countless times before achieving greatness. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." So, as you reflect on your own life, consider this question. When was the last time self-doubt stopped me from pursuing something important? Don't judge yourself for it, just notice it. Awareness is the first step toward change. And remember, you are not your doubts. You are stronger, braver, and more capable than your inner critic would have you believe. The next time that voice pipes up, don't silence it completely. That's impossible. Instead, acknowledge it, thank it for trying to protect you, and then gently push back. Remind yourself that growth requires discomfort and success requires persistence. Because the truth is, the only thing standing between you and your goals is the story you're telling yourself. One of the most deceptive traps that keeps people stuck is perfectionism. At first glance, it might seem like a positive trait. After all, striving for excellence is admirable, right? But perfectionism isn't about doing your best. It's about chasing an unattainable ideal, a standard so high that it becomes impossible to meet. And in the process, it robs you of progress, joy, and fulfillment. Let's break this down. What exactly is perfectionism? It's the belief that everything you do must be flawless, that any mistake or imperfection is unacceptable. Perfectionists are often paralyzed by the fear of getting things wrong. They spend hours tweaking details, overthinking decisions, and delaying action until conditions feel just right. But here's the problem. Perfect conditions rarely exist. And by waiting for them, perfectionists end up stuck in a cycle of procrastination and self-criticism. Now let's talk about why perfectionism is so dangerous. On the surface, it masquerades as a virtue, a sign of dedication and high standards. But beneath the surface, it's driven by fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. Perfectionism convinces you that if you can just get everything right, you'll avoid criticism, rejection, or disappointment. But the truth is, no amount of perfection will ever shield you from these experiences. They're part of being human. Here's an analogy to help you understand this better. Imagine standing at the edge of a swimming pool, determined to jump in, but only when the water is perfectly still, the temperature is ideal, and there's no one else around. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Yet this is exactly what perfectionism does. It creates impossible conditions that prevent you from taking action. Meanwhile, life passes you by and the pool remains untouched. Perfectionism also has a sneaky way of disguising itself as productivity. You might think you're working hard, refining every detail, and ensuring everything is flawless. But in reality, you're spinning your wheels, expending energy without making meaningful progress. It's like running on a treadmill. You're moving, but you're not going anywhere. Let me share an example. Consider the story of Vincent van Gogh, one of history's most celebrated artists. During his lifetime, Van Gogh struggled with self-doubt and criticism. His paintings were far from perfect. They were raw, emotional, and unconventional. Yet today, they're regarded as masterpieces. If Van Gogh had waited for perfection, he might never have created the works we admire so deeply. Instead, he embraced imperfection, trusting that his art didn't need to be flawless to be impactful. So, how do you break free from the grip of perfectionism? Start by reframing your mindset. Instead of aiming for perfection, aim for progress. Remind yourself that done is better than perfect. A project completed, even imperfectly, is infinitely more valuable than one left unfinished because it wasn't good enough. Here's a practical exercise to try. Set a timer for a task you've been avoiding due to perfectionism. Give yourself a strict deadline, say 30 minutes, and commit to finishing within that time frame, regardless of how perfect the result is. This forces you to focus on action rather than perfection and helps you build momentum. Another powerful strategy is embracing imperfection intentionally. For example, if you're writing, allow yourself to leave typos or incomplete sentences in your first draft. If you're creating art, experiment with bold colors or unconventional techniques, even if they don't align with your vision of perfect. Over time, you'll realize that imperfections don't diminish the value of your work. They add depth and authenticity. Finally, remember this: perfectionism is an illusion. It promises control, certainty, and approval, but delivers none of those things. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of variables beyond our influence. Trying to control every detail is not only exhausting, but futile. True growth comes from embracing uncertainty, taking risks, and learning along the way. As we continue exploring the psychological traps that hold us back, keep this in mind. Perfectionism isn't about achieving greatness. It's about avoiding vulnerability. It's a defense mechanism designed to protect you from failure and judgment. But the cost of this protection is stagnation. So ask yourself, what am I sacrificing in the pursuit of perfection? Is it time, creativity, joy, connection? Whatever it is, know that you deserve better. The next time perfectionism whispers, "It's not ready yet," challenge it. Remind yourself that progress, not perfection, is the path to success. Because the truth is, you don't need to be perfect to make an impact. You just need to show up, take action, and trust the process. One of the most pervasive traps that keeps people stuck is societal conditioning, the invisible forces that shape our beliefs, behaviors, and choices without us even realizing it. From a young age, we're taught to follow certain rules, meet specific expectations, and conform to predefined roles. Whether it's choosing a safe career path, pursuing relationships that look good on paper, or living up to family traditions, these external pressures can steer us away from our true desires, and over time, they create a life that feels like it belongs to someone else, not you. Let's break this down. What exactly is societal conditioning? It's the set of norms, values, and expectations imposed on us by society, culture, and even the people closest to us. These influences aren't inherently bad. They help maintain order, provide structure, and offer guidance. But when they conflict with your authentic self, they become a trap. They convince you to prioritize external validation over internal fulfillment, leaving you feeling disconnected from your own dreams and passions. Here's how it often plays out. Imagine being told throughout your childhood that success means getting straight A's, landing a prestigious job, and buying a house by a certain age. These messages might come from well-meaning parents, teachers, or mentors who want the best for you, but they don't necessarily align with what you want. Over time, You internalize these expectations, believing that deviating from them would mean failure, or worse, disappointment. But here's the problem. Living someone else's dream doesn't lead to happiness. It leads to resentment, frustration, and a sense of emptiness. You might achieve all the milestones society deems important, degrees, promotions, material possessions, but still feel unfulfilled because they don't reflect your true desires. Let me share an example. Consider Malala Yousafzai, the youngest ever Nobel laureate. Growing up in Pakistan, Malala faced immense societal pressure to conform to traditional gender roles. Girls were expected to stay home, avoid education, and prioritize marriage. Yet, Malala refused to accept these limitations. She pursued her passion for learning, defied cultural norms, and became a global advocate for girls' education. Her story reminds us that breaking free from societal conditioning isn't just about personal growth. It's about creating a life that aligns with your values and purpose. So, how do you begin to dismantle societal conditioning? Start by questioning inherited beliefs. Ask yourself, whose dreams am I chasing? Are these goals truly mine, or are they someone else's? This process can be uncomfortable because it requires confronting deeply ingrained assumptions. But it's also liberating. Each question you ask brings you closer to uncovering your authentic self. Here's a practical exercise to try. Write down 3 major decisions you've made in your life: your career, your relationships, your lifestyle choices. For each one, ask yourself, did I make this choice because it felt right to me or because I thought it was expected of me? Be honest with yourself. If you discover that some of your decisions were driven by external pressures, don't judge yourself. Instead, use this awareness as a starting point for change. Another powerful strategy is surrounding yourself with people who support your authenticity. Societal conditioning thrives in environments where conformity is rewarded and individuality is discouraged. By seeking out communities, mentors, or friends who celebrate your uniqueness, you create a safe space to explore who you truly are. Finally, remember this: breaking free from societal conditioning doesn't mean rejecting all external influences. It means filtering them through the lens of your values. Some expectations may align with your goals, while others may not. The key is discernment, knowing which ones to embrace and which ones to let go. As we continue exploring the psychological traps that hold us back, keep this in mind. Societal conditioning is subtle but powerful. It operates beneath the surface, shaping your thoughts and actions without you even realizing it. But awareness is the antidote. Once you recognize its influence, you gain the power to rewrite the script, to create a life that reflects your true self, not someone else's vision. So, I leave you with this challenge. Take one small step today toward breaking free from societal conditioning. Maybe it's having an honest conversation with a loved one about your dreams. Maybe it's setting a boundary around how much weight you give to external opinions. Or maybe it's simply allowing yourself to imagine a life that feels authentic to you. Whatever it is, trust that you are worthy of living a life that's uniquely yours. If there's one thing that ties together all the psychological traps we've discussed so far, fear, self-doubt, perfectionism, societal conditioning, it's this: they operate beneath the surface. These patterns are like invisible threads, subtly pulling you in directions you don't even realize. And the reason they're so effective at keeping you stuck is simple. You can't change what you don't see. That's why awareness is the most powerful tool you have for breaking free from these traps. Let's break this down. What does awareness mean in this context? It's not just about noticing your thoughts or behaviors. It's about understanding their origins, their triggers, and their impact on your life. Awareness is the light that shines into the dark corners of your mind, revealing the patterns that hold you back. Without it, you're operating on autopilot, reacting to fears, doubts, and expectations without questioning whether they're valid or helpful. Here's an analogy to help you understand this better. Imagine walking through a dense forest at night with no flashlight. You stumble over roots, trip on rocks, and get tangled in vines, all because you can't see where you're going. Now, imagine turning on a flashlight. Suddenly, the path becomes clear. You can navigate obstacles, avoid pitfalls, and move forward with confidence. Awareness works the same way. It illuminates the hidden forces shaping your life, giving you the power to make intentional choices. But here's the challenge. Awareness requires honesty. It means confronting uncomfortable truths about yourself, things you might prefer to ignore. Maybe you'll discover that your fear of failure stems from childhood criticism. Maybe you'll realize that your perfectionism is driven by a need for approval. Or maybe you'll uncover how societal conditioning has shaped your goals in ways that don't align with your true desires. These insights can be painful, but they're also liberating, because once you see the patterns, you can begin to change them. So, how do you cultivate awareness? Start with self-reflection. Set aside time each day to pause and check in with yourself. Ask questions like, what emotions am I feeling right now? What triggered them? How are they influencing my thoughts and actions? Journaling is a powerful tool for this process. Writing allows you to externalize your thoughts, making them easier to examine objectively. Another effective practice is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the act of paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It helps you observe your thoughts and feelings as they arise, rather than getting swept away by them. For example, if you notice self-doubt creeping in, instead of immediately believing it, you can say to yourself, there's that thought again. I wonder where it's coming from. This small shift from reacting to observing creates space for choice. Let me share an example. Consider someone who struggles with procrastination. On the surface, it might seem like laziness or lack of discipline. But with awareness, they might discover that their procrastination is fueled by fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of not being good enough. Once they recognize this underlying pattern, they can address the root cause instead of just treating the symptom. Here's a practical exercise to try. At the end of each day, take 5 minutes to reflect on your experiences. Ask yourself, what patterns did I notice today? Did I react out of fear, self-doubt, or perfectionism? What could I do differently next time? Over time, this practice will help you identify recurring themes and develop strategies for breaking free from them. Finally, remember this: awareness isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. You won't uncover every pattern overnight, and that's okay. Growth happens in layers. Each insight builds on the last, deepening your understanding of yourself and your behavior. As we continue exploring the psychological traps that hold us back, keep this in mind. Awareness is the foundation of change. Without it, you're trapped in cycles you don't fully understand. With it, you gain the clarity and agency to rewrite your story. So I leave you with this reflection. What patterns am I ready to bring into the light? Trust that the more you see, the more you'll grow. Because the journey to freedom begins with a single step, and that step is awareness. Now that we've explored the psychological traps that keep you stuck and the importance of awareness in recognizing them, it's time to focus on action. Because while understanding your patterns is crucial, it's only the first step. Real change happens when you take consistent, intentional action, even if those actions feel small or insignificant at first. This is where momentum comes in. Let's break this down. What exactly is momentum? Think of it like pushing a boulder up a hill. At first, it feels heavy and difficult. Every step requires immense effort, and progress seems painfully slow. But once you get the boulder moving, it becomes easier to keep it rolling. The same principle applies to personal growth. Taking small, consistent steps builds momentum, making it easier to tackle bigger challenges over time. Here's the key insight: big changes don't happen overnight. They're the result of countless tiny actions compounded over time. And yet, So many people fall into the trap of waiting for the perfect moment to make a massive leap. They tell themselves, "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'll wait until I have more time, energy, or resources." But here's the truth. There will never be a perfect moment. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of obstacles. The only way to move forward is to start right where you are with what you have. Let me share an example. Consider the story of James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits. Before becoming a best-selling author, Clear struggled with injuries that left him questioning his future. Instead of focusing on grand goals, he committed to small daily habits, writing just one sentence a day, reading a few pages of a book, or practicing gratitude for 5 minutes. Over time, these small actions added up, leading to transformative results. His philosophy? Focus on 1% improvements every day. As he puts it, small habits don't add up, they compound. So how do you build momentum in your own life? Start by setting tiny goals. Instead of aiming to overhaul your entire life in one go, focus on one small action you can take today. If you want to write a book, commit to writing just 100 words. If you want to exercise more, start with 5 minutes of stretching. If you want to declutter your home, begin with one drawer. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Here's why this works. Small actions lower the barrier to entry. When a task feels manageable, you're far more likely to follow through. And each time you complete it, you build confidence and reinforce positive habits. Over time, these small wins create a snowball effect, propelling you toward bigger achievements. Another powerful strategy is tracking your progress. Whether it's using a journal, an app, or a simple checklist, documenting your actions helps you see how far you've come. It also provides motivation on days when you feel discouraged. For example, if you miss a day of writing, seeing a streak of 10 consecutive days might inspire you to pick it back up. Progress is motivating, but only if you acknowledge it. Finally, remember this: setbacks are part of the process. Building momentum doesn't mean avoiding failure. It means learning to recover quickly when things don't go as planned. If you miss a workout, don't throw in the towel. Show up the next day and start again. If you procrastinate on a project, don't beat yourself up. Take one small step to get back on track. Consistency, not perfection, is what matters most. As we continue exploring the psychological traps that hold us back, keep this in mind. Momentum is built through action, not intention. Thinking about change won't get you anywhere. You have to do something. Even if it's imperfect, even if it's uncomfortable, taking one small step forward is infinitely better than staying stuck. So I leave you with this challenge. Identify one tiny action you can take today to move closer to your goal. Maybe it's sending an email, practicing a new skill, or simply reflecting on your progress. Whatever it is, trust that every step counts. Because the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and that step starts now. Life is unpredictable, and no matter how carefully we plan or how hard we work, setbacks are inevitable. Whether it's a failed project, a missed opportunity, or a personal loss, adversity has a way of testing our resolve. But here's the paradox. Setbacks aren't signs of failure, they're opportunities for growth. The key lies in how you respond to them. This is where resilience comes in, the ability to bounce back stronger, wiser, and more determined than before. Let's break this down. What exactly is resilience? It's not about avoiding challenges or pretending they don't affect you. It's about facing difficulties head-on, learning from them, and using them as stepping stones toward your goals. Resilience doesn't mean you won't feel pain, frustration, or disappointment. It means you'll find a way to keep moving forward despite those emotions. Here's an analogy to help you understand this better. Imagine a tree growing in a storm. The wind howls, the rain pounds, and the branches bend under the pressure. But instead of breaking, the tree adapts. Its roots dig deeper into the soil, anchoring it firmly in place. Over time, the tree becomes stronger, more flexible, and better equipped to withstand future storms. In the same way, adversity shapes us. It teaches us patience, perseverance, and the importance of staying grounded in our values. But here's the challenge. Resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. And one of the most powerful ways to do this is by reframing setbacks. Instead of viewing failures as evidence of inadequacy, see them as feedback. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use it to improve? Every mistake carries a lesson, if you're willing to look for it. Let me share an example. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, one of history's greatest inventors. During his quest to create the light bulb, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Edison didn't see his setbacks as defeats. He saw them as experiments, each one bringing him closer to success. His resilience wasn't just about persistence, it was about perspective. He understood that failure is an essential part of innovation and growth. So, how do you cultivate resilience in your own life? Start by normalizing setbacks. Remind yourself that everyone experiences failure, even the people who seem most successful. What sets them apart is their willingness to keep going. When you encounter a setback, take a moment to acknowledge your emotions, anger, sadness, frustration, but don't let them define you. Instead, focus on what you can control, your mindset, and your next steps. Here's a practical exercise to try. The next time you face a challenge, write down 3 things you can learn from it. For example, if a project doesn't go as planned, ask yourself, what skills can I improve? What resources do I need? What would I do differently next time? This simple practice shifts your focus from blame or regret to growth and action. Another powerful strategy is leaning on your support system. Resilience doesn't mean going it alone. It means knowing when to ask for help. Surround yourself with people who uplift and encourage you, whether it's friends, family, mentors, or colleagues. Their perspective can help you see solutions you might have missed, and their encouragement can remind you of your strength. Finally, remember this: resilience isn't about bouncing back to where you were. It's about bouncing forward to somewhere better. Every setback has the potential to teach you something new about yourself, your goals, and your capacity to overcome obstacles. By embracing adversity as a teacher, you transform it from a source of pain into a source of power. As we near the end of our exploration into the psychological traps that hold us back, keep this in mind. Setbacks are not the end of the road. They're detours leading to new opportunities. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges, it's how you'll respond to them. Will you let them define you, or will you use them to redefine yourself? So, I leave you with this reflection. What lessons am I ready to learn from my setbacks? Trust that every challenge carries within it the seeds of growth, because resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. We've reached the end of our journey together, but this isn't truly an ending. It's a beginning, a moment to take everything we've explored and apply it to your life. Because understanding the psychological traps that hold you back is just the first step. The real magic happens when you use that knowledge to unlock your potential and create a life that feels authentic, meaningful, and fulfilling. Let's recap what we've covered so far. We started by identifying the invisible chains that keep you stuck: fear, self-doubt, perfectionism, societal conditioning, and more. We explored how these patterns operate beneath the surface, shaping your thoughts, decisions, and actions without you even realizing it. But awareness alone isn't enough. So we dove into practical strategies for breaking free, confronting fear, silencing self-doubt, embracing imperfection, questioning societal expectations, and building momentum through small, consistent actions. Also discussed the importance of resilience, the ability to turn setbacks into stepping stones and failures into feedback. Together, these tools form a powerful framework for growth. They remind you that while life may be unpredictable, You have the power to navigate its challenges with courage, clarity, and purpose. But here's the most important takeaway. None of these concepts matter unless you put them into practice. Knowledge without action is like a map without movement. You know where you want to go, but you never actually start the journey. So I urge you, don't let this be just another intellectual exercise. Take one step today, right now, to embody these principles in your life. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do differently tomorrow to break free from the patterns that hold me back? Maybe it's having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's setting aside time to journal about your fears and dreams. Or maybe it's simply choosing to face the day with a mindset of curiosity instead of resistance. Whatever it is, commit to it. Small actions compound over time, creating massive shifts in who you are and how you experience life. Now, I want to leave you with a story, a metaphor for the journey ahead. Imagine standing at the edge of a dense forest. The path before you is unclear, shrouded in mist. You can hear the rustling of leaves, the distant call of birds, and the occasional snap of a twig underfoot. It's intimidating, yes, but it's also full of possibility. Each step you take reveals more of the trail, bringing you closer to the light. Breaking through the trees, this is your life. The forest represents the unknown, the challenges, the uncertainties, the moments of doubt. But the light? That's your potential, your strength, your capacity to not only endure, but thrive. Every challenge you face clears away the fog, showing you the way forward. And every victory, no matter how small, brings you closer to becoming the person you're meant to be. Remember, growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. It happens when you take one small step outside of them. It happens when you choose courage over fear, authenticity over conformity, and progress over perfection. You don't need to have everything figured out to move forward. You just need to trust yourself and the process. As we close, I want to remind you of something powerful. You are the architect of your destiny. The choices you make, the actions you take, and the mindset you cultivate shape the course of your life. Adversity will come, it's inevitable. But so is your ability to rise above it, to use it as fuel for growth, to transform it into something meaningful. So, the next time adversity strikes, and it will, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, what now? Not why me, not how much longer, but what now? Because in that question lies your power. In that question lies your opportunity to choose strength over surrender, purpose over passivity, and growth over stagnation. You are capable of more than you realize. You are stronger than you think. And you are worthy of a life filled with meaning, authenticity, and joy. All you have to do is take the first step, and then the next, and the next. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the psychological traps that hold us back, and the tools to break free from them. My hope is that these ideas inspire you to embrace your struggles, honor your uniqueness, and live a life of courage and purpose. Remember, the road may be tough, but the destination is worth it. Now go out there and create your masterpiece. The world is waiting for the best version of you.